I think we're all pretty pleased that spring is arriving, and hopefully we don't get too much of a winter anymore, even though I quite like the winter. So today we're talking about the Watershed Trust of the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust Foundation. And this was Ontario's first watershed trust. It was formed in 1994 to protect the natural areas in the Collingwood and the Blue Mountains from the developmental pressures of many kinds. As we all know, that overdevelopment really does impact habitat and natural areas. The Blue Mountain Watershed Trust Foundation has been instrumental in preserving and protecting our remaining wild places. The area of interest totals about 50,000 hectares, so quite a large piece of property. It encompasses the municipalities of Collingwood and the town of Blue Mountains, and is bounded by Thornbury to the west, Nottawa to the east, Georgian Bay to the north, and extends up into the highlands of the Niagara Escarpment to the south. So definitely our backyard. Today we're going to have two speakers, Morag McKenzie and Deb Doherty. Morag McKenzie is an award-winning case study writer and highly skilled interviewer and researcher and creative content strategist. She won North America Business Person of the Year award for growing profitable new business, 320% over budget, and GBC's Innovation Award for the creation and implementation of Industry Education Partnership Program. Yes, Morag is very impressive. Morag is a lifelong environmentalist and actively leads and volunteers with a wide variety of different charities, including the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust, Ontario Nature, Joe's Team, and the Ride to Conquer Cancer. She currently sits as the co-chair of the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust Communications Committee, and she shares that chair with Deb Doherty. So along with Morag, we've got Deb Doherty that's going to be speaking today. Also a very impressive person. She has been a member of the Collingwood Town Council from 1996 to 1994, and or 1999 rather, and 2014 to present. So two stints there, good for you. In her role as councillor, she sat on the board of the NVCA for 4 years and presently sits on the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Waste Management Task Force. Her focus and priorities are growth and sustainability, environment and climate change, affordable housing, and active transportation. She joined the board of the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust Foundation in 2018. In her private life sector, Deb was advertising account manager for Chorus Entertainment for 20 years and retired in 2019. So please welcome Morag and Deb, and I think we're all going to find it very interesting to learn about some of the protected areas in the backyard that we all like to play in. Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And I will just share my screen and we'll get going. Okay. And we're off. So the goal of the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust Foundation is to preserve and to enhance natural features and habitats in the Blue Mountain Watershed. Hence our tagline, "We need the natural world, help us protect it." The reason people flock to the Blue Mountain area is for scenes like this one. And this is a shot of the Silver Creek. But what we're doing to the area is impacting these natural streams and our enjoyment of them. Here's an aerial shot of the Silver Creek wetland. So far, it's preserved in perpetuity, which is fantastic. Is anyone familiar with the Silver Creek wetland or can tell me where it is? Okay, don't see any hands, so I'll keep going. Even though the Silver Creek wetland is protected, there are developments that threaten to encroach upon it and upon other wild places. The Bridgewater development was approved by the OMB for 323 units, and this is the site plan for that development illustrated here. They now want to double that density to 650 units, directly adjacent to the provincially significant Silver Creek wetlands. Our world is changing quickly around here. The 2021 census revealed, and perhaps not surprisingly, that a growing number of Canadians are moving to smaller municipalities, and in particular calling resort destinations home. South Georgian Bay communities rank among the fastest growing in Canada, with Collingwood population increasing almost 14% between 2016 and 2021. Wasaga Beach was up 20%, and the Blue Mountains was up a staggering 42% since 2016. The population now stands at 24,800 in Collingwood, almost 25,000 in Wasaga Beach, and 9,500 in the Blue Mountains. And these figures do not include part-time residents. South Georgian Bay populations will continue to expand by an average of 57% by 2041. And I have taken that number from the county's municipal comprehensive reviews. Collingwood population will reach 37,000, Wasaga Beach 38,000, and Town of the Blue Mountains 16,300. So the question remains, do we want to turn this into this? Our job is to keep this from happening. The Watershed Trust is a 26-year-old registered charity. We are all volunteer. We have 350 plus members, most of whom are local. And we have a very active membership, much like your own. We have a board of directors. We have a watershed action group. We have a special events team. And we have other committees with diverse portfolios from communications to education and beyond. Which brings us back to our mission, to protect and enhance the Blue Mountain watershed ecosystem. And we do this by protecting streams and rare habitat, using current laws and regulations, and promoting better laws and practices. This is our area of concern, the watersheds of the Blue Mountain area. A watershed is the area that drains into a watercourse or body of water. All of Southern Ontario is within the Great Lakes watershed. These distinct watersheds on the map here are those that make up our area. The green one is the Silver Creek watershed, and I'm sorry that the labels aren't a little bit more clear here. The dark gray is the Black Ash Creek. The dark blue is Town Line Creek, and the light blue is the Pretty River. These watercourses originate at the top of the mountain, the Niagara Escarpment, and they cover some 50,000 hectares. Our focus areas are development and protection of sensitive lands, aggregate extraction, a file right now that's keeping us extremely busy. Protection of the Niagara Escarpment, monitoring and engaging golf courses and their use of pesticides and fertilizers, fighting invasive species, and preserving the Silver Creek wetland. So some of our activities to take care of all of those different jobs that we have in front of us are, first of all, to engage at all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal. And the ministries with which we are most busy are the Ministry of the Environment, the Ontario Land Tribunal, the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and the Department of Fisheries. We engage with developers. We engage with businesses. We bring issues into the public eye through deputations, through our communications and marketing, as well as our special events, like the Be the Change film series. We actively work to protect and restore our watersheds. And we work with conservation authorities, of which there's two in our watershed, the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority and the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. The aforementioned Silver Creek wetland is located in the northwestern corner of the town of Collingwood and the northeastern corner of the Blue Mountains, straddling Osler Bluff Road and Long Point Road, where they approach Georgian Bay. The Ministry of Natural Resources first evaluated the wetland in 1985 as provincially significant, and it is home to a wealth of fish, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. It's the most significant coastal wetland in southern Georgian Bay and an important migratory stop for a good variety of birds. In 1994, some developers wanted to make it into a golf course. That's when the Watershed Trust was formed. We helped trigger a reevaluation in 1995, which confirmed the provincially significant designation and served to complex the area. That is to say, we put three areas together as one wetland. That's by classification, not physically. And in 2008, the Watershed Trust supported the town of Collingwood at the OMB to protect the wetlands from development, and were successful in protecting all of the most sensitive areas, restricting development to just about a third of the total acreage to the far eastern side. The wetlands is a rich, biodiverse area that improves water quality, provides habitat for hundreds of species of birds, reptiles, and mammals, including a number of species at risk, like the spotted turtle, and it reduces erosion. Recently, as we come to discover more about climate change and climate change mitigation, we understand that the wetlands operate like a huge sponge to absorb stormwater, and they are a powerful carbon sink. That's to say, they hold and absorb greenhouse gases. The wetlands span just over 165 hectares and has survived 4 waves of proposed development since 1980. However, there is more development than ever slated for the area adjacent to and arguably in the wetland. That's George Powell. He's a member of our Watershed Action Group, and he's collecting water samples from the Silver Creek south of Highway 26. We monitor water quality in many creeks in our area. Water quality is affected by water levels, by temperature, by contaminants, and turbidity, which is suspended solids. These are things that affect the health of fish, larvae, and other benthic invertebrates, insects, amphibians, and really everything that lives in a creek. Through his research, George has discovered that there are no regulatory guidelines for 85% of registered pesticides presently in use in Ontario. The Trust advocates to both levels of government for improvements to mandatory monitoring of streams and development of standards for acceptable limits of pesticide use. This is how we endeavor to improve water quality impairment. We talk to ski hill operators about turbidity. We talk to golf course management about pesticides and fertilizers. We talk to landowners and municipalities about care and use of fertilizers and salt, I should mention. And we carry out remediation activities like tree planting and removal of invasive species. This, just to illustrate some of our water monitoring activities. This is a chart showing phosphorus levels. They show base flow of our 6 water courses, and then they show the same water courses after storm events. The red line is what the government perceives as allowable. The blue tower is Town Line Creek. Excessive phosphorus results in algal blooms that eat oxygen and suffocate other life. In this creek, phosphorus comes from people's lawns, but to a much greater extent from golf courses, through which it passes several. Golf courses use incredible amounts of phosphorus-containing fertilizer, as well as a whole set of potent herbicides. But thanks to our monitoring team's good work and consistent liaison with the area's 7 golf courses, pesticide use was reduced by 34% between 2008 and 2019. And now I'm going to turn our presentation over to my colleague, Morag.
Thank you so much, Deb. That was really interesting and well presented. So thank you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about how we continue to make a difference, both in educating our children and the community. So let's first of all talk a little bit about how we educate children in our local schools. We've run several youth education programs, 4 in the last year, where we work with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority to develop a program to talk about wetlands, environments, why they're important, and their effect on endangered species. Admittedly, COVID has gotten in the way of these activities. We delivered the program to 5 area schools and high schools in Collingwood and the town of Blue Mountains. It was well organized and highly successful. Our next job is to keep the program going. Over the past 5 years, the Trust has also been sponsoring a Collingwood area student to attend Ontario Nature's Summit, a weekend-long conference with youth from all over Ontario, which is held each September. Last year, we sponsored Arlo White, who's shown in the picture, from Collingwood. For him, it was a life-changing experience, as every day there were workshops and students streaming from all over Canada. With a focus on Indigenous culture, Arlo participated in both virtual and in-person workshops and activities. Now I am going to ask a few questions, and it's going to be a little difficult, I know, because we're in Zoom, but maybe you can even just think in your head. The first thing I want to talk about is our work with removing controlled and invasive species. So how many of you know about the problem with Phragmites? Most of you? wasn't really familiar with Phragmites until I moved to the Collingwood area and really understood their incredible impact and the amount that they are invading our wetlands and waterways. For those of you that don't know, Phragmites are an invasive plant that spreads quickly and outcompetes water and plant species for nutrients, choking them out and in fact taking over that area. It was eliminated with chemicals in the Kincardine and also around the Peely Point area. However, chemicals are not an option for us. We have to remove them individually and mechanically and manually. For the past 6 years, the Watershed Trust has been instrumental in eliminating Phragmites in key Collingwood areas and extending our workstations to the Blue Mountain areas as well. Success is a multi-year endeavor, and ultimately, we will need to work in partnership with the provincial government, as much of the most affected areas are now along our adjacent provincial highways. An area that we're all very concerned about, I know, is the removal of trees in our neighborhood, trees in our parklands, and trees in our forests and natural areas. And with all the development that's going on, as well as the damage inflicted by the emerald ash borer, we see a rapidly losing tree cover. Trees are especially important for all of us to enjoy. We've been involved in several tree planting initiatives, including planting 10 large trees donated to us in the Bayview Park in the town of Blue Mountains and the annual Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Area sponsored planting along the Black Ash Creek every spring. Now, we've talked quite a bit about the Silver Creek wetlands, and as Deb already talked about, one of the most important ways that we're continuing to make a difference is in halting or substantially reducing planned developments that infringe on the Silver Creek wetlands and all of the other wetlands in our area. The active members of the Watershed Trust through WAG, which we talked about earlier, the Watershed Action Group, spend an incredible amount of time talking with local developers and departments. In over a dozen different developments, the Trust has been instrumental in increasing the size and improving the quality of the buffer zones between the developments and our wetlands, reducing the density of some developments, and in many cases, preventing poorly conceived developments from going forward. Chances are high that if these developments were approved, Silver Creek would no longer be a Class A cold water trout and salmon stream. Sure, we still have a pretty stream, it would look nice, but it would no longer be the home for trout, salmon, birds, mammals that depend on it as an important part of their migratory path. Now, I heard in our very beginning preamble, a lot of talk about some of the amazing places you all ski. So I'm sure many of your members are avid skiers. So I'm wondering if you know where this picture is taken. Take a look. Did anyone guess from Blue Mountain Chair? I'm sure many of you have taken the chairlift at Blue Mountain above Townland Creek or seen it on your hikes on Cascade Trail. Townland Creek, as Deb mentioned, runs through Blue Mountain Resort and then Montera Golf Course in an easterly direction before flowing into the Nottawasaga Bay. It is a very important cold water stream and spawning ground for rainbow trout and coho salmon. And as we've mentioned, Blue Mountain Watershed Trust was very influential in working with both the Blue Mountain Resort and the golf courses to protect it through our pesticide monitoring and protective buffer zone programs. Local governments do play a huge role in our communities. We attend council meetings, we send deputations to discuss specific developments with planning departments, and we do our best to get a seat at the table when municipal governments sit down with major developments to work out their terms. We feel that our local governments are changing for better, slowly. but there is an old school attitude that remains, that their role has been to help developers develop. In Collingwood, however, based on a shortage of water for new developments until 2026, a merit-based system of water allocation will improve the quality of new developments based on a focus of community benefits. Now, I already know that many of you ski, and I know you have many teams and groups of people that allow you to participate in many group events, including hiking. So I'm sure you've been out many times along the beautiful Bruce Trail. One of our priorities is protecting the escarpment, and that for us means three things. The first, housing developments. Castle Glen, as an example, which is on Gray Road 19, has raised serious concerns based on the magnitude of the development and certain design elements. Erosion, ski hill creation, scarification, pond management. Osler built a pond. Georgian Peaks didn't. Osler slopes are well vegetated, the peaks are not. And finally, gravel pits. There are plenty of great spots for gravel pits inland on the escarpment. We don't need to expand the ones right on the brow, grandfathered in decades ago before the escarpment was declared a World Heritage Site worth protecting. One of our biggest projects today is the opposition of the closure of County Road 91 and expansion of 2627 Side Road. We've been writing reports and informing the public, making deputations to council, appearing at hearings, and working closely with the Niagara Escarpment Commission. The Niagara Escarpment Commission has denied this application, and a court appeal is in process. The Blue Mountain Watershed Trust and other applicants have been granted party status to the appeals of the refusal of the development permit application. Blue Mountain Watershed Trust member George Powell has taken a leadership role for the trust in engaging local, environmental, fisheries, and engineering experts to advise and represent our government interests at the hearings. This is an extremely expensive and time-consuming proposition for the trust. And members of our WAG committee have taken a lead role in organizing public information and highly successful fundraising events to assist us in our efforts. Here's the late Don Kerr, one of our founding members, explaining our watersheds. Making a difference and explaining why our watersheds are important is what we're doing with all of you here today. When we talk about the Watershed Trust, most people have not heard of us. We have to explain who we are, what we do, and why it's important.
People have not heard about the Watershed Trust.
Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the events that we run. Again, I'm going to ask you a question. Again, in your mind, you can just think about whether it's you know the answer or not. How many of you have ever heard of our annual See the Salmon Run? I actually can kind of see a lot of people shaking their heads that they have not. Has anyone attended? Well, the See the Salmon is now in our 14th year, and it's one of our biggest and most popular annual events. Held, of course, we could not hold it for a couple years due to COVID, but we held it last September 25th at the Foley property. And it was a much needed community building day that provided over 350 people with a unique opportunity to learn more about environmental stewardship and enjoy the beauty of nature. Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, the Pollinators, Georgian Bay Forever, Red-tailed Hawk Forest School, the Blue Mountain Public Library, and Elephant's Thoughts all contributed fun, educational, and interactive activities for children, families, and adults to enjoy. From COVID-friendly arm painting, a giant blow-up salmon, stream bug games, and aquatic-themed nature art trail, there were plenty of Conservation Authority leading events to make it a wonderful day for the whole family. We really hope you'll consider joining us next year, again in September. Another event that we're really excited about is our Be the Change film series, now in its 13th year. And again, wondering how many of you have attended, how many of you have heard of us, and how many of you even just like movies. Last year, we again were able to resume the Be the Change film series as we entered our 13th year. And that last year, we removed it to an outdoor venue with great success. It was held at the Collingwood Brewery every second Tuesday from July through to the end of September. Each year, the Be the Change film series features environmentally and socially conscious movies such as Why We Cycle, The Radicals, and Edible City. With most screenings sold out, attendees could enjoy a cold Collingwood Brewery beer, light snack or meal from a local plant-based food truck, and a wonderful evening under the stars. It was one of our most successful fund and friend-raising events. And again, I hope we see you all there next year. With COVID making many of our in-person events over the last 2 years not possible, we held online Zoom informational webinars. One of these was held last December and called What Does Development Mean to You? We had over 150 people sign up and attend with lots of great discussion. Major topics covered included how planning works, an update on current developments, actions the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust are taking to protect our watersheds, and what individuals can do to protect them. The Blue Mountain Watershed Trust is also very active on social media with feeds on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our website, www.watershedtrust.ca. Now, who here likes to take pictures? Pictures of nature? Absolutely. I love taking pictures. Just because we at the Trust all love nature, one of our most popular Instagram feeds is our weekly Nature Photo of the Week, where we members and non-members submit to me, I'm actually the editor, beautiful pictures of birds, wildlife, scenery, vistas, their hikes, etc. And we publish them each week. And there's just a few of them. So if you love taking pictures, please start sending them in. And finally, of course, the reason that Deb and I both volunteer is beyond, of course, our own commitment to environmental protection of the area that we love, is the people that we work with. And we're very proud of our award-winning team, which are recognized and respected throughout the community. The picture on the right was just taken actually just about a month ago and features our president, Norm Wingrove, receiving the Order of Collingwood from Mayor Brian Sanderson. Norm received this highest honor for his 25+ years of volunteer leadership with the Trust, with the Bruce Trail, and as a ski patroller. But with more members, we could do even more. So, how can you help? You can engage with local government. You can write letters to the editor of Collingwood Today, the editor of our other local newspapers. You can talk to your friends, your family, and your neighbors. Share your concerns and share this important information that we have talked about today. And of course, what we really ask you to do is to take action. However, what we'd really like you to do is to get involved with our group, the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust. We'd love you to join as a member, to volunteer, and of course, to donate and support our environmental issues. We've shown our website there again, Watershed Trust, or watershedtrust.ca, and our email address as well as our phone number. So thank you so much for inviting us to participate as presenters today. Deb and I have truly enjoyed preparing the presentation, meeting each of you. I know you're one of the largest provost groups, and so it was a real honor to be able to present. Now I think Martin is going to open the floor, and we ask you to please ask us some questions.
Very good, Morag, and Deb as well. Thank you. Yeah, you just made my work very easy. You already said. So dear members, if there's any questions you have, just simply unmute yourself and state your cause. And look at that, I see Don Collins-Williams, you are already raising your hand. Don, please unmute and ask away.
Thank you, Martin. That was a wonderful, very interesting presentation, and congratulations on all the work you're doing. I was going to ask near the end what we can do to help, and you talked about a few things at the very last there. If we volunteered with you, what sort of things would we be doing?
Well, I'll answer that first, and then maybe Deb can add in. When I first moved here about 3 years ago now, the first thing I did was to look for actually a volunteer group that I could get involved in with environmental stewardship, because it's what I'm particularly passionate about. And right away, they signed me up to be the photo editor of the week. And I've been doing that for 3 years now, and I would, love to be able to have somebody help me with that. Deb and I both co-chair the Marketing Communications Committee, which is the group that really, takes care of all these types of things. But probably the most, and then we have many special events that we're always looking for volunteers for. And then the final group that really does the heavy lifting of our organization is the WAG group, which is involved actually in directly working with developers and in governments in terms of trying to manage the development process. So it really depends on what you are interested in and with the amount of time you would like to commit and what you're most passionate about.
I can add, if you like to spend time outdoors, there's lots of grunt work that we can get your assistance with during the spring. As we mentioned, we are doing tree planting, mostly in association with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, but we may be doing some work with the town of Collingwood this spring. And actually in the fall is another good time for planting trees. And of course, cutting frag, which is one of the most satisfying, most difficult, and least dry opportunities that we can offer. But it's a lot of fun, especially when we can get a large group together and survey the fruits of our labors after a full day of cutting down Phragmites.
Phragmites.
What? Very good. Eileen, you raised your hand.
Phragmites is the plant.
Please unmute and go ahead.
Thank you.
By the way,
Thank you
the line of Gerald Gold, you guys keep on unmuting. I'm going to mute you again, but if you want to state a question, please do so after Eileen.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was most interesting. I'm wondering, going further west from the town of Blue Mountains, there are two proposed developments off of Highway 26 on both the east and west side of Christie Beach Road. And of course, there's that power thing that they're trying to do on the other side of Meaford by the Army base, which I think is going to create a lot of havoc in the bay. Is there anything being done on any of those issues?
Deb, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I know that there are groups, in particular, there's a very active and vocal group right now in Meaford that are trying to draw attention and oppose that water facility that they're proposing to construct at the Meaford Tank Range. The other developments beyond our watershed, which is basically ends at Long Point Road, we have not been terribly involved in, although we have been, we have taken quite an interest in Aquaville. which some of you may have heard about. But right now that whole project is on hold. So we are pausing to breathe on that one until the developer comes back. If there is an interest in drawing attention to the possible disadvantages of any particular development over closer to the Thornbury area and beyond, please reach out to us, because we do have a lot of experience and we can guide you folks in doing the right things to draw the right kind of attention to these kinds of developments.
Thank you. Yes, because there's apparently something to the order of 1,000 to 1,500 homes being planned off of Highway 26, which is
That's at Christie
that's a
Beach.
huge number in comparison to the general population.
And that's at Christie Beach?
Yeah, on both sides. And we're very concerned with wastewater heading right down into Georgian Bay.
Wow, that's like a town.
Yeah, it's huge.
Wow. Please have them reach out to us.
Thank you.
I have a question as well, if I may. You pointed towards the golf courses as folks that use a lot of fertilizers. Typically, that finger is pointed at the farming community. Are there no farms? Maybe there aren't, or are they a little more careful in the use of fertilizers in your area?
Actually, there aren't a lot of active farms in our watershed anymore. Our watershed is mostly within the municipality of Collingwood. And as you know, that has become very urbanized. And there is virtually no large-scale agriculture happening within our community. And most of the, I'm thinking of farms farther up the escarpment, are not that terribly busy in the kind of agriculture that can have a real bad impact on water, and that is grain, etc. And there isn't a whole lot of it. As we go farther east, like past Stainer, which of course is then again in another watershed, there is a lot more agriculture, and you see all these cornfields when you're driving along Highway 26, and corn is a great consumer of fertilizer, unfortunately.
All right, thank you. I see, Arlene, you still have your hands up. Is that for a follow-up question or just a leftover from your first one? Okay, it was a leftover. Very good.
Martin?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Here you go. Martin, it's Dave Beatty.
Hey, Dave. All right. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. I found your presentation very interesting. Thanks very much. I had a question around the Beaver Valley and the geography where my wife and I live. Is there a similar trust or a similar organization with objectives such as yours that looks at that part of the world, the Beaver Valley, the Beaver River, the Talisman development, etc.?
I am not aware that there is one, but I am aware that there's a lot of focus on that area right now. If there is a group and they're looking for any guidance at all, again, it's not in our watershed, but please reach out to us. And if you have concerns about what's going on, please reach out to us. Not that we will necessarily get involved. Again, we try to keep our activity within our own watershed, but we've been doing this for a while, and we're very concerned about the environment and about the quality of our water in this area. So ultimately it all goes into Georgian Bay.
Yeah. I actually have a comment to add to that. I also sit on the Ontario Nature I'm a representative for Ontario Nature, which is a coalition of all these small environmental groups from across Ontario, which there are literally so many of them. It's actually inspiring how many communities have them. And I actually will reach out to the woman that's the manager of that to ask that. And I can actually post that response back to Beverly, and she can share that back with your group, because I'm actually quite confident there's one almost in every single community across the entire province. It's inspiring, as I say.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you very much.
Could you maybe shed some light on the Grey Sauble Conservancy? You mentioned it at the beginning of your talk. I happen to live right next to Dave, who asked the question. And I remember when we bought this place, we had to get some approval from that conservancy. So they do something, but I have no idea
Right.
what else they do.
Right.
Is there something you could shed some light on?
So the conservation authorities are a quasi-governmental body. They're a creature of the province, but they're not directly attached to the province. They're actually supported by the municipalities that are within their watershed, and they're even their focus right now is in flux, because this provincial government is not overly enthusiastic about environmentalists, and they have been really cutting back on the mandate of the conservation authorities. So at one point in time, they were able to, when a development came forward, they were able to comment on natural heritage, species, natural hazards, flooding potential, flood mapping. They used to be involved in a host of different activities, but now a lot of their focus has been pulled right back, and they basically are only involved in natural hazards, which is flooding, potential for flooding, and flood mapping.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for you, ladies. So have you found over the years that local and provincial governments are getting more clarity? We'll go with more local governments. First of all, more clarity about how they want the development to look, and being more forthcoming, working with developers on what the responsibility of the developers are to ensure good environmental policies that within their own companies and within their own developments. Things like, parklands, water management systems, that kind of thing.
Yes, well, I'll speak for the town of Collingwood, because that is the municipality that I'm most familiar with. This ICBL interim control bylaw that the town of Collingwood had to pass in April of last year, because we were not processing sufficient water in our water treatment plant to handle all these new development applications that were coming forward. And although the development community put up a big stink, I actually think it was the best thing that could possibly have happened, because we were running as fast as we can. We had development applications coming in from right, left, and center. We could hardly keep up. And this allowed us to pause, and it allowed us to think about how we should be planning land use and how we should be allocating water. And we have come up with, and in fact, council will likely be passing it next Monday, a merit-based system for planning approval. And so we will be ranking a development application, like literally scoring it on the community benefits that it will offer. So that has to do with, as an example, affordable housing, with urban design, with facilitation of active transportation, parkland, and what that parkland looks like. So that's going to go a long way to forcing developers to think a little bit harder about the kind of communities that they want to put in place. Some municipalities do a better job than others. City of Toronto has progressed, if you want to call it progress, and I do, by leaps and bounds since Mayor John Tory took over. Other communities, not so much. All that said, municipalities are creatures of the province, and we are governed by the Provincial Municipal Act and the Planning Act. And so we only have so much latitude to force developers to give us better communities, because if we force too hard, they will take us to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And the province, in my view, is making it easier and easier for developers to be able to do that. And that's unfortunate. But there is an election coming up in June of this year, so you can think about that when you cast your ballot.
Deb, I'm glad you ended on that note, because the provincial government, unfortunately, as Deb said, does still have a lot of control. That makes, and I can think of some specific developments that are going on right now that the town has voted against, the trust has voted against, and still have gone to land tribunal.
Very good.
And when they go to the tribunal, who sits on that tribunal? Is it mainly provincial level people?
It's a provincial appointment, and it's a single adjudicator who may or may not have planning experience, may be more likely to have a legal background. So the Ontario Land Tribunal has just been formed recently. It used to be called the OMB.
Okay.
The Ontario Municipal Board.
Yeah.
And then it morphed into the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. And local was the key word, because they did involve the local government and the local council. Then they took into account their objectives and their official plans a little bit more than the OMB ever had. Now we're back to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Notice the word local is gone, and it's likely to be acting a little bit more like the OMB used to. Now, that's not to say that they will go against a municipal official plan, but they may sometimes rule against some of that municipality's existing zoning bylaws, as an example. So a municipality may have a piece of land that's designated environmental protected because it's close to one of our water courses. And the land tribunal could come back and say, well, we don't accept that land needs to be designated environmental protection. So we are going to allow the developer to build homes a little bit closer to the water course, and so on.
I just say something about the phragmites. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Caroline, go ahead.
I had listened to, I donate to Georgian Bay Forever, and I watch their webinars when I can as well. And I read or heard a scientist on Lake Huron was dealing with phragmites and actually drowning the fragments out. Have you heard of that process?
Yes. We've been very fortunate with high water in Georgian Bay the last couple of years, because if you can cut Phragmites down below the water line, it drowns. It does drown. It needs to grow above water. So our cuts up until 2019 were really successful because water was so high and what we were cutting down was not coming back.
Okay, good.
The problem is when you have Phragmites growing in wet places, but not underwater, like ditches along highways and such. And they're very difficult to get rid of there. And as our presentation alluded to, a lot of times we do have to use some chemicals just to kill them once so that they won't come, because they're not natural. They're not natural to this environment. So if you can get rid of them, they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
Right. But it is a long, hard process.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, Beverly, could I ask you to close the presentation, please?
Okay, well, I think this was a really interesting presentation. I don't know what our total number of people participating was, but didn't look too bad. We're all a little COVID fatigued, I think, and probably looking forward to getting back to our meetings again. So I think this was great, and maybe we can even add just the contact information in our newsletter. Is that possible?
Absolutely. We really appreciate our website, our info, and and our phone number is. Well, I'd be happy for you to put my email in for anyone that would like to send me a nature photo of the week as well.
Okay, I think we should be able to do that as a little follow-up, at least
that
for
would
a
be
month or
awesome.
two.
It's a great way to tiptoe into getting involved with us. And the last thing is that when I said membership is very reasonable, it is only $40 a year. So we'd really appreciate you joining the trust as well.
Okay, well, I learned lots. I used to do some environmental work for a large corporation, but so I was more familiar with some land trusts and things like that. But this was really interesting, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. And we certainly encounter our water every day, and many of us are skiers and golfers and hikers and bikers. So, we look at all of this all the time. And the more we can all learn about it and what we can do to help with it, I think it is best for everyone. And certainly working with municipal governments as well. If we see developments going in that we have questions about, they should be able to answer those questions as well.
Well, thank you so much. We really enjoyed meeting you all, and I hope we run into you on the ski hills, the bike trails, the hiking trails sometime soon.